Have you ever trusted someone, only to realize, far too late, that they were quietly rooting for your failure? It's not always the loud enemies you need to fear. Sometimes, it's the ones who sit silently in the shadows, the ones who smile to your face while sharpening the knife behind your back. Not all hatred wears a mask of anger. Some of the most dangerous people in your life aren't openly hostile, they're quietly calculating. And the worst part? They don't make announcements. They don't warn you. They wait. They watch. They weave themselves into your world so seamlessly that you don't even notice the trap until it's already sprung. By the time you feel the damage, emotionally, financially, or even socially, it may already be too late. This isn't about paranoia. This is about awareness. This is about survival. Because sometimes, the people plotting against you don't look like villains. They look like friends. They sound like trusted colleagues. They act like family. And unless you learn to recognize the signs early, they'll slowly drain your energy, your trust, and your confidence before quietly moving on to their next target. That's why in this video, we'll break down 5 critical red flags, powerful warning signs that separate a harmless hater from someone out to truly destroy you. If you've ever had the gut feeling that something was off, but couldn't quite explain it, this may be the clarity you've been searching for. So ask yourself, do you truly know who's on your side? Or is someone already planning the moment you'll never see coming? If you're serious about protecting your peace through the power of Stoic wisdom, and building the kind of mental resilience no manipulator can shake, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because in a world like ours, knowledge isn't just power anymore. It's protection. 1. The silent observer. Not every predator roars before it strikes. The most dangerous threats aren't the ones that shout, they're the ones that wait. Like shadows, they move quietly, blending in, studying every detail of your life, biding their time until the moment is perfect. And when they finally act, it feels like they were always one step ahead, because they were. These aren't just curious coworkers or nosy acquaintances. This is something far more calculated. I call them the silent observer. They don't argue. They don't insult. They don't make their intentions clear. Because confrontation isn't their goal. Infiltration is. They gather information with surgical precision. You won't even notice them doing it. One day, they casually mention a place you went, even though you never told them. Another day, you start seeing them at your favorite coffee shop, or the gym, or even outside your office. At first, it feels like coincidence, but when it keeps happening, over and over, you begin to realize something darker is at play. And the truth is, in today's hyper-connected world, it doesn't take a hacker to track you. It only takes someone who's patient. A friend tags you at a dinner spot. A coworker mentions your weekend plans in a group chat. A neighbor talks about your routine without even realizing it piece by piece. They collect the puzzle of your life until they know exactly where you'll be. And when, and once they have that map, they insert themselves into it, carefully, deliberately. At first, it seems harmless. You bump into them too often. They start conversations with oddly specific details. They happen to be nearby a little too often. But by then, they've already slipped into your world, and they're not there by accident. So how can you spot someone like this before they get too close? That's exactly what we're diving into next. In the next section, we'll uncover the second red flag, one that often hides behind charm, empathy, and even affection. Don't miss it. Remember that feeling? When someone keeps showing up at the right place, right time, a little too often, and your instincts start sounding the alarm? At first, you try to brush it off. Maybe it's all just coincidence. But then, their timing feels too perfect. Their presence becomes too consistent. And somehow, they know things they shouldn't. They appear in places they don't belong. And yet, when you try to explain it, even to yourself, you hesitate. You don't want to seem paranoid. But this isn't paranoia. This is calculated surveillance. So, How do you protect yourself? By paying attention, not out of fear, but with awareness. Ask yourself, who always seems to be where you are? Who knows things they shouldn't? Who gives you an uneasy feeling? Even when nothing seems obviously wrong, your instincts are rarely wrong. The human brain is wired to detect danger before our conscious mind can fully understand it. That feeling in your gut, the one telling you something isn't right, it exists for a reason. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought if you ignore the signs. If you dismiss your instincts, you allow the silent observer to stay hidden." And that's exactly what they want. The key to protection is not paranoia, it's presence. It's knowing that while you can't control who's watching, you can control what they see. Break your routines, change your patterns, be unpredictable. The harder you are to track, the less appealing you are as a target. And above all, trust your intuition. If something feels wrong, it probably is, because in a game where your safety could be on the line, the biggest mistake you can make is believing that no one is watching. 2. The quiet betrayal. Not every attack comes with a warning. Some are slow, subtle, and buried beneath the surface, like a drop of poison slipped into your drink. You don't notice it until it's too late. The most dangerous enemies aren't the ones who confront you directly. They're the ones who smile, shake your hand, while quietly untying your shoelaces and watching you fall over your own steps. Take Alex, for example. He was thriving at work, respected, productive, well-liked, but then, things began to shift, quietly. His manager, who once eagerly welcomed his ideas, became strangely distant. Colleagues who used to laugh and chat now only offered polite smiles. Lunch invites faded away. Nothing in the office had changed. But somehow, Alex became an outsider. At first, he blamed himself. Did he say something wrong? Was he overthinking? But as the days turned into weeks, a pattern emerged. A harmless joke taken the wrong way. Credit for a project quietly redirected. A vague comment about his attitude, one no one could explain. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't random. Someone was working against him. Not through open attacks, but through whispers, distorted truths, and seeds of doubt. This is how betrayal works when it's done with patience. It doesn't strike like a hammer. It leaks like a slow drip, weakening the foundation beneath your feet. The person behind it rarely acts directly. They plant seeds and let others water them. A rumor here, a misinterpreted comment there, not outright lies, just enough half-truths to make people question, hesitate, and pull away. And by the time you realize what's happening, the damage is already done. The Stoics knew this form of sabotage well. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by senators and advisors who schemed behind his back, once wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if you do not hold yourself true." But the truth holds no value if none of them truly know it. We live in a world full of people who choose to believe perception over reality, who trust in whispered gossip more than in what is proven and real. They chase illusions, rather than pausing to see what truly is. And if your self-worth is built on the opinions of others, then you will always be at their mercy. But if your worth comes from within, anchored in your integrity, your actions, your character, then no rumor can shake you. The mistake many people make is thinking that harm only comes in obvious forms. We often imagine betrayal as a declaration of war, but in truth, it often comes disguised as concern, delivered gently by the hands of a manipulator, one who never gets their own hands dirty. And yet, the goal is always the same: to isolate you, make you doubt yourself, and eventually become easier to control, easier to remove. So, how do you protect yourself? First, understand this. Your reputation may be fragile, but your character is unbreakable. Others can control how you are perceived, but they can never change who you truly are. As Epictetus once said, if someone speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself. Instead, lie in such a way that no one will believe them. Don't waste your energy chasing rumors. Let your life be the proof that shatters them. Second, observe, not with paranoia, but with clarity. If misunderstandings and conflict constantly seem to surround one particular person, pay attention if trust starts to fade around you without clear reason. Search for the source. The wise do not accuse without cause, but they also do not ignore what is right in front of them. And finally, fortify your inner circle. A person who stands alone is easy to manipulate. Surround yourself with those who know your true nature, who can see through deception, and who remain loyal not because of rumors, but because of truth, as Seneca warned. Associate with people who make you a better man. The right people will see lies for what they are, and they'll stand by you because they know who you really are. Because betrayal is rarely loud, but those who seek to tear you down can only succeed if you let their whispers define you. So, stand firm, stay clear-eyed, and never, ever give your enemy more power than they deserve. Part 3. The Mask of Friendship. The most dangerous enemy is not the one who stands against you. It's the one who stands beside you, smiling, nodding, listening, while silently sharpening the knife behind your back. Betrayal rarely comes from a stranger, because a stranger doesn't know you well enough to strike where it hurts most. It comes from those who've earned your trust, those you've let into your world so deeply that, by the time you see their true nature, they already know exactly how to dismantle yours. Consider Adam, a man who took pride in being cautious with his trust. He was successful, respected, and had built his life around strong, genuine relationships. He wasn't naive. He knew the world could be cruel. But when he launched a new business, Adam met Eric, a charismatic colleague who seemed eager to support him. Eric wasn't just helpful, he was always available, always listening, always wanting to know more. He praised Adam's vision, encouraged his ideas, and quickly became someone Adam confided in. Within months, Eric was no longer just a work associate, he was a friend. He knew Adam's dreams, his frustrations, even the thoughts that kept him awake at night. Eric met Adam's wife and children, joined them for dinner, and played the role of a trusted confidant flawlessly. Then, slowly, the cracks began to show. Business deals Adam had worked hard on started falling apart, mysteriously, without explanation. But the story doesn't end here. In the next part, we'll uncover Eric's true face, and it might make you ask yourself, is there someone wearing a mask standing beside me today? The previous page uncovered the mask of betrayal, the so-called friend who hides behind a smile. Now, the truth begins to surface. The business deals Adam had carefully built began to collapse. And shockingly, it was Eric who stepped in to close them, not with Adam, but in place of him. But that was only the beginning. Private thoughts Adam had once confided in Eric, his doubts, concerns, and vulnerabilities, suddenly found their way back to him. Twisted and distorted, they didn't just echo in the background. They painted him as unstable, unreliable, even paranoid. Worse still, came the gaslighting. When Adam confronted Eric, he was met with effortless deflection. You're overthinking it, maybe it was just a misunderstanding. I'd never do that to you, and yet, the signs were undeniable. The evidence too consistent to ignore. The very person Adam had trusted the most had been systematically undermining him, not through open conflict, but through quiet, calculated deception. This is what makes a false friend so dangerous. Unlike an enemy who attacks directly, a false friend doesn't argue, doesn't confront, doesn't threaten. Instead, they embed themselves into your life, earning your trust with kindness, disarming you with support, convincing you that they're your biggest ally. And when they've gained full access to your secrets, your habits, your insecurities, they turn that trust into a weapon. A Stoic would never advise blind trust, not out of cynicism, but from a deep understanding of human nature. Marcus Aurelius once observed, "Those who rush to prove their loyalty are often the ones most likely to betray you." True friendship takes time. Real trust is earned through consistent actions, not through hurried words or overeager displays of support. But a false friend? They fast-track the process, breaking down your defenses before you even realize you need them. Think about the people in your life. Has someone recently shown an unusual interest in you? Have they gone from distant acquaintance to eager confidant overnight? Are they suddenly curious about where you go, who you're with, or what keeps you up at night? Are they truly a friend? Or are they quietly gathering the pieces they need to one day turn against you? They show up as your biggest cheerleader, always supportive, always encouraging, but beneath that enthusiasm, they quietly feed your doubts and fears. A true friend genuinely wants what's best for you. A false friend, on the other hand, wants access. And access, when given to the wrong person, can become a loaded weapon. History has shown us this time and time again. Julius Caesar, one of the most powerful leaders of ancient Rome, never expected Brutus, his trusted ally, to be among his assassins, as Seneca wisely warned. A prosperous man has more to fear not from his enemies, but from his friends. When you have something valuable, your success, your peace of mind, your stability, there will always be those who seek to take it. But the easiest way isn't through force, it's through deception. So how do you protect yourself? Step 1. Awareness. Pay attention to sudden shifts in how people treat you. Has someone become unusually interested in you? Do they seem too eager to befriend you? Too insistent on knowing your every thought? Ask yourself, why? Real friendships take time. A false friend moves quickly, because their goal isn't connection, it's control. Step 2. Patience. A genuine bond grows naturally, but a manipulative person will try to rush it, earning your trust before you've had a chance to see who they truly are. If someone seems too perfect, too good to be true, they probably are. Finally, protect your inner world. Not everyone deserves access to your plans, your fears, your vulnerabilities. Epictetus once warned, the more you reveal of yourself, the more power you give others to use against you. So choose carefully. Because the greatest threat doesn't always come from those who oppose you openly. It often comes from those close enough to whisper in your ear, while hiding a knife behind their back. Be kind, but never blind. Be open, but never naive. Your awareness is your strongest armor. As we just discussed, never mistake rapid closeness for genuine friendship. Time reveals true intentions. Let it do its work. Now, we enter a new chapter. The gradual attack, the most dangerous kind. Because it doesn't strike like lightning. It creeps in, like a quiet, persistent rain. No one falls into violence all at once. Like a storm, there are always warning signs. The air grows heavy. The sky darkens. The wind begins to shift. Nature gives signals. So do people. When someone harbors true malice, they rarely act impulsively. They test, escalate, and observe. They push boundaries bit by bit, watching how you respond, seeing how far they can go without being stopped. If you don't recognize the early signs, you may not realize the danger until it's far too late. Take Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who assassinated President John F. Kennedy. He didn't just wake up one day and decide to kill a sitting president. His descent into violence was a long process, one that built up over years. Oswald had a history of aggression, defiance, and dangerous ideological obsessions. He defected to the Soviet Union, then returned to the US, carrying deep resentment and a growing sense of alienation. Before targeting Kennedy, he had already attempted an assassination, aiming at General Edwin Walker, a right-wing figure he viewed as an enemy. That attempt failed, but it was a critical warning sign of what was to come. Oswald used that experience to test his ability, refine his plan, and escalate in secrecy. By the time he fired the fatal shot, his path to violence had long been in motion. This is how escalation works. It doesn't begin with outright violence. It starts with a joke, one that carries a sharp edge, but is vague enough to be brushed off. Then it becomes small, seemingly accidental violations, standing too close, brushing against you with just a little too much force, blocking your path during a conversation. Next come the subtle threats, remarks masked as humor, offhand comments that reference violence, words designed to unsettle you, but always wrapped in plausible deniability, and with each step, they're watching. If you laugh it off, they go further. If you say nothing, they take it as permission. Every action is a test, to see how far they can go before meeting resistance. History is full of violence that followed this exact pattern. Mark David Chapman, the man who murdered John Lennon, didn't suddenly become a killer either. As we saw with Mark David Chapman, the descent into darkness never begins with a single act, it begins with silence, denial, and overlooked warning signs. Chapman didn't just wake up one morning and decide to pull the trigger. He spent months quietly lurking outside the Dakota building, where John Lennon lived, waiting, watching, blending in. He lingered like a shadow, rehearsing the scene in his mind, fueling his obsession in silence. At one point, he even got Lennon's autograph, just hours before murdering him. He stood beside Lennon, smiling like an ordinary fan. But behind that smile was something much darker, already set in motion. There were warning signs, strange, unsettling remarks to friends, erratic behavior, emotional instability. But like many red flags, they were brushed off, as if he was simply weird but harmless, until, tragically, he wasn't. Stoicism teaches that real strength comes not from ignoring danger, but from seeing it clearly and responding with calm and courage. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, pretending a problem doesn't exist won't make it disappear. Avoiding confrontation doesn't neutralize a threat, it gives it space to grow. People who test boundaries do so because they believe they won't be stopped. And if no one resists, they escalate. So what should you do? The first step is simple but crucial. Recognize the pattern. If someone frequently makes violent jokes, behaves aggressively, or constantly violates your personal space, don't dismiss it as nothing. People who speak casually about destruction are often testing to see just how far they can go before they're taken seriously. The second step is to set boundaries immediately. A true Stoic doesn't overreact, but neither do they tolerate unnecessary threats. Address the behavior clearly and directly. If the person continues to push, remove yourself from their reach. Some people only escalate because no one pushes back. But when you show that they will meet resistance, many will stop. And finally, take action before it's too late. If the situation continues to escalate, document everything. Keep records of inappropriate behavior, disturbing comments, or anything that signals growing danger. Seek support from those with authority, whether it's leadership, legal support, or someone who can help intervene. Distance yourself if you must. As Seneca warned, a sword never kills by itself, it is merely the hand that wields it. Violence doesn't erupt from nowhere. It is always preceded by signs, and the sooner you recognize them, the better your chance of stopping danger before it unfolds. Because fear thrives in ignorance, but knowledge, awareness, and action turn fear into power. No one descends into chaos in a single leap. It begins with small steps and silence, and no one prevents disaster by pretending it isn't coming. Before the storm strikes, the sky always darkens first. The real question is, will you notice it in time? Part 5. The Long Game. Some threats are loud, reckless, and impulsive. They burst into view in the heat of the moment, shouting, confronting, driven by raw emotion. These threats are easy to spot, easy to predict, and often easy to avoid, but the ones you should fear the most are silent. They are patient, they wait. A truly dangerous enemy doesn't act in anger, they act with calculation. They observe, they listen, they gather information, and when the moment is right, they strike in a way so precise that you never saw it coming. Unlike the obvious aggressor who gives you time to prepare, the patient enemy moves silently in the background, and by the time they act, the damage is already beyond repair. Think about the people in your life. Has anyone ever shown an unusual interest in your personal details? Not just small talk, but real questions about your future, your relationships, your ambitions, your fears. Some ask out of genuine care, but others, they ask because information is power. They're mapping your movements, studying your life, waiting for the exact moment when you're at your most vulnerable. The problem is, these people rarely trigger any alarms. In fact, they often come across as the least threatening person in the room. History has shown us this again and again. The deadliest betrayals don't come from enemies, but from those we trust. Julius Caesar didn't fear his enemies on the battlefield. The last person he suspected was Brutus. And yet, it was Brutus, the one he trusted, who stood among his assassins. People like that don't lash out. They embed themselves into your world, bit by bit. They play the long game, making sure that by the time they make a move, you're too entangled to escape. That's why the patient enemy is the hardest to detect. They don't argue. They don't show jealousy. They don't voice resentment. Instead, they support you. They encourage you. They position themselves as someone you can rely on. They make you feel safe. But all the while, they're collecting details about your weaknesses, your struggles, not out of friendship, but out of strategic preparation. And when the opportunity finally presents itself, they act in a way that leaves you unable to recover. Maybe it's a boss who pretends to value your work, only to slowly push you out. Or maybe it's a business partner who agrees with everything you say, just to undermine you at the exact moment you're most exposed. When you let your guard down, that's exactly when they strike. But not everyone stands outside your life. Some are dangerously close. Sometimes, the one who hurts you the most isn't a stranger. It could be someone inside your personal circle, a friend, even a family member. They don't rush, they wait, they quietly build influence, little by little, until they hold all the advantages, and then they strike. Marcus Aurelius once warned, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." A patient enemy understands this deeply. They hide their true nature behind a mask of kindness, letting you paint them as an ally. And they let you believe that, until the moment they decide to show you who they really are. So, what can you do to protect yourself? First, be wary of those who show persistent and overly deep interest in your personal life. Not everyone who asks about you is a threat, but if someone seems unusually curious about every detail, take note. Second, don't overshare. Stoics believe in self-control, evaluating things for yourself, making your own decisions, instead of giving away your trust too easily. And finally, trust actions, not words. A true friend proves themselves over time, through how they behave when there's nothing for them to gain. But a patient enemy waits for you to lower your guard. Don't let that happen. If you start noticing these signs in someone, understand this. You're not facing a small disagreement. You're facing a well-calculated threat. And surviving it isn't about reacting after danger appears. It's about recognizing it early, when it's still hiding in the shadows. Before you leave this video, I need you to do two things. First, save this video. The signs you've just learned aren't just interesting information. They could be the thin line between staying aware and being blindsided by betrayal. Because the greatest threats don't always scream. Sometimes, they smile. Second, watch the next video now appearing on your screen. It will help you recognize hidden manipulators. Because the kind of people we talked about today rarely act alone. They always wear masks, and the more you understand how they operate, the harder it becomes for them to use you. If this video opened your eyes, leave a comment with the phrase, I see clearly now. Because once you see these signs, you can never unsee them. And if you want to keep sharpening your instincts, protecting yourself, and staying 5 steps ahead of toxic people, hit that subscribe button. Knowledge is power, but action is what keeps you safe. Stay aware, stay vigilant, and I'll see you in the next video.